Hello Internet, my name is TechGuy, and yes, it's TechGuy, not TechBoy anymore. If you want to find out more about that, please click on the previous video annotation that's in that bottom left corner. And this video is marking the first video of my whole new revamped look and change to the channel, as you'll probably know from my previous video and all that. But this is going to be focusing on Apple's predictions for 2015, at least what I am hoping to see from them. So let's get into it. First, I want to narrow down the categories that I will be talking about, which includes iPhone, iOS, iPods, iPads, Mac, OS X, Apple TV, and the Apple Watch, of course. So I'm going to be covering all of those. So if you click on any of these annotations on the screen at the moment, it will take you to that part of the video. And I assume that you all obviously all want to know about the iPhone, so let's get into that. So I'll cover all of these as quick as I can because there's so much to cover. The iPhone in 2015 needs to be important. I may seem a little bit biased because the fact that I'm upgrading my smartphone around when the next iPhones are launched and all that, I'm setting my expectations sort of high in terms of what I'm wanting to see from them. Some people on the internet have debated whether or not it's going to be an S model upgrade, so iPhone 6s and iPhone 6s Plus, or go straight to the next number, iPhone 7 and iPhone 7 Plus, because the S model grades look like they don't really innovate and all that. But then again, that's when they put in the new technology, whereas the whole number model is more of a revamp of what came before. So like the 4S to the 5, that was more of a revamped sort of model. But I'm more inclined to say that it's going to stick to the iPhone 6s and iPhone 6s Plus. So, as proven with the iPhone 5C and 5S, it's got nothing to do with what the name of the device is, but rather the key differentiators between each of the devices. I am predicting and hoping the following will happen when they announce the new iPhones in September 2014, which is when I expect them to announce it. The fact that they'll be called the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus, an A9 processor with a die shrink to probably around 14 nanometers if they can manufacture it down to that, down from 20 nanometers in the A8 chip, so that should make it more energy efficient and all of that stuff. An updated camera with either a higher megapixel count, no protruding lens, and possibly 4K video recording. One new piece of tech that's not in any other Apple device as of currently. So we had Siri, we had Touch ID. There was a rumour going around it might be a 3D screen, and I really don't know what my thoughts are going to be on that until there's a lot more rumours about that happening and all that. And I'm sure I'll be updating you all on that once I know more concrete rumours as to what's coming and that, based off what I'm reading on the internet. And hopefully fix that bed gate issue by making the device more sturdier around the volume keys and all that. So, if this is all they change, I will only be tempted to upgrade to it, or at least to the iPhone 6s Plus, because that would be a more substantial change from my iPhone 5s. I will only be tempted to upgrade to it if iOS 9 absolutely delivers in terms of software. The next thing I want to talk about is iOS. So iOS 9 will be previewed, with the first beta being announced and released at WWDC 2015, with a release date to the public probably in September when the new iPhones are announced like previous years. iOS 9, I hope, is more of a drastic update in terms of features added to the operating system that do not really require development support as much. So check out my top 10 iOS 9 predictions video, and I literally cover everything I'm wanting to see in the next version of iOS over there. But just to highlight a few of them, the main ones I'm mostly wanting to see are split screen multitasking, offline Siri, and a ton of customization options, so like home screen widgets, themes on the App Store, etc. It's not that I'm bored with iOS, it's just it'd be nice to have all this customization options. And you're probably thinking, well, Android's got all that forever. It's nothing that drastic to get me to switch to Android. It would just be a nice addition to have. So that's what I'm expecting for iOS 9 in 2015. Next, I want to talk about iPod and iTunes. So the iPod lineup is a rapidly declining business for Apple because in their last financial quarter, which is over a 3-month period, I believe they did not even sell over 1 million units. So that is a really rapidly declining business for them and all that, because all the other products they sell already play music, whereas that was designed to be a music player. So it was important in 2001, but not so much in 2014-15. What I'm expecting in terms of updates is nothing drastic, but more along the lines of double the storage for the iPod Shuffle, the iPod Nano to remain the same but may get a slight price drop. The iPod Touch will possibly be the only iPod updated if they were to update it, because the A5 chip inside it will probably not be supported with iOS 9 if that all makes sense, because you generally get 3 years of support with devices and all that. Then when the 4th year for the device comes along, they generally then drop support for it. So I'm expecting them to drop the iPhone 4S and the iPad 2 from iOS 9 as well at the same time, because they both have the A5 chip in them. So I'm expecting them to have an iPod Touch 5th generation 16GB model in black space grey for $199. That is purely just to get a low price point and not expecting people to get them for all of these applications and dedicated features, and more to have something that has the casual game on it and a camera and the touchscreen and all that stuff. The iPod Touch 6th generation, what I'm hoping to see in it is a 64 and a 128GB model. 128 because the iPod Classic no longer exists, in the same colours that the 5th generation model is offered at $299 and $399, or their current prices they have at the moment, or something like that. The A7 chip from the iPhone 5S, because it's not the latest, but it's good enough in terms of support. The 4.7-inch Retina display, just to have a bigger screen version. They won't do the 5.5-inch model for the iPod Touch, because that would cannibalise some of the iPhone 6 Plus's sales, and their successors, that is, and not get any thinner, but rather the length and width to accommodate for the display and the larger battery. Moving on to iTunes, it will probably not get an update unless Apple announces an on-demand streaming music service, which of course they will need to have a lot of changes in iTunes and all that to accommodate for that transition. So check out my top 5 iTunes Radio 2.0 predictions video, as my thoughts in that video are still exactly the same as it was when I made that video way back. Next I want to talk about the iPad. So iPad updates will come in October 2015, just like it did in 2012 to 2014. The iPad Air 3, what I'm expecting from it is an A9 processor or an A9X processor, depending on how they differentiate that from what they put in the iPhones and that. Hope they can bring back the physical silent orientation switch on the right side of the device, because that buggers me how they got rid of that. Further improvements for the display for outdoor usage. I'm basing that off what I've read from reviews on the internet and all that, saying it's better, but it's still not brilliant for outdoor usage. Fix up the storage configuration so you've got a 32GB baseline model instead of 16GB. And NFC support similar to the iPhone when NFC APIs come out, but without Apple Pay in-store support. So that's when you take your phone up to the counter and you put your finger on the Touch ID sensor and all that. They won't put that in the iPads to get you to buy the iPhones and all that. So it'd be good to just have all the other basic NFC support. So if you've got headphones and speaker docks and stuff like that, it would just be really handy to have NFC in it. And also split-screen multitasking. The iPad Mini 4 is probably going to get a slight update, but nothing to be on par with what the iPad Air 3 is to increase the sales of that. So I'm expecting an updated processor to the A8X processor, an updated camera to the same as the iPad Air 2, slightly thinner like the iPad Air 2, and probably the same price configurations as they currently are. So more of an update from the iPad Mini 2 to the 3, but still nothing that drastic. And I'm hoping an iPad Pro will be announced during 2015, probably at the same time as the other iPads based off what I'm reading at the moment, but that's probably going to change 50,000 times between now and then. But if you completely ignore all those rumours, I would imagine they will announce the iPad Pro, which is what they, at least everybody on the internet's calling it, but I'm more inclined to say it will be the iPad Plus, like they have the iPhone 6 Plus. It's going to be a 12 to 13 inch screen, So at the moment it's rumoured to be a 12.2 inch screen. I'm hoping that will be a 16:9 aspect ratio of what the iPad Air is already. The full-size iPad at the moment, that is. A Retina display with a completely unique resolution to all the others to accommodate for the wider screen. Around the same thickness and built design as the iPhone 6 and 6 Pluses, but with extra speakers and all that around it based off what we're hearing. Come with a more powerful wall adapter to make charging the larger battery just as fast as it is in all the other models. And in the US, I'm imagining it starting at $5.99 for 16GB Wi-Fi only, or $6.99 for 32GB Wi-Fi only, as the base model line, because the iPad Air 3, when that gets updated, no doubt it will be 16 or 32 gig at the baseline for $4.99 US. So it's probably going to be $100 more, like it was from the Mini. So you get the Mini, you pay 100 more, you get the iPad Air, 100 more, you get the iPad Pro. That's what I imagine they will do. The next thing I want to talk about is the Mac. So when I'm talking about the Mac, I'm mostly talking about the hardware and all that that's shipping in all of these computers that they're shipping today. So the biggest omission that I noticed throughout this year is the iMac with Ultra HD display. And when I say Ultra HD, that's really like a 4K display, but it's a resolution of 3840, which is not 4000, by 2160, which is basically the same as a 4K TV, in a 21.5 inch model, and it's probably going to cost $1,999 US, with somewhat similar specs to what the 27 inch model is, and have stuff like the 1TB Fusion driver standard and all that. So probably about $500 less than the 27 inch model, because it's a smaller screen and less resolution and all that, but still just as good. A MacBook Air Retina is still expected and all that, and I'm hoping that comes to fruition. If not next year, then maybe the year after. Expect a premium price tag on it, being a Retina displayed MacBook Air. 4 times the resolution of the 11-inch MacBook Air model, which is 1366 by 768, which would result in that number, as different from 2880 by 1800 on my MacBook Pro Retina 15-inch, which has a different aspect ratio and all that stuff, but it's not quite the same resolution and all that, so they have their own unique advantages for each of the models, that is. So also include at least one port for USB Type-C with an adapter included, so you can convert that from Type-C to whatever the standard USB has been for all these years with 2.0 and 3.0 and all that. 8GB of RAM is standard, similar to what they did when they introduced the MacBook Pro Retina for the first time. Intel HD Graphics 6000 to help drive the Retina display, and the rest will basically remain the same as the current generation MacBook Airs. That's at least what I'm expecting. It could be built on an ARM architecture and all that, which would require an entire rewrite of the OS X operating system, so they might do that for the next version when they bring that out. The MacBook Pro Retina, I'm not expecting them to do much to it. They'll probably just update it with the Broadwell series processors and maybe make it $100 cheaper, but nothing drastic. Similar to what they should do with the MacBook Pro and all that, with upgraded CPUs, GPUs, and a slight price drop. I'm not expecting anything drastic. Mac Mini, I'm not expecting any updates because it got a very brief update this year, which is what everybody was wanting for at least 2 years now. And also the Apple Thunderbolt 2 display, so updated with a higher screen resolution and specs similar to the iMac with 5K Retina display. I don't know too much about the product because I'm not really into the displays and all that, and I'm not in the market for one, but hopefully for the people that do want it, an update will hopefully come down the line. Also, with the Macs and all that, they all run OS X, so OS X 10.11 or 10.11, however you want to pronounce it, will also come out in 2015. So Yosemite is by far the best operating system that I have used. It's just so clean and easy to use and understand and all that. I was a user of Mavericks and all of that, but it shouldn't be that hard for people who don't like Windows 8. Yes, I had to insert that joke there, to transition over to the Mac, because it was seamless for me to transition over, and it was second nature in a couple of weeks. Seriously. So yes, it does not support Windows applications natively, but if you get Parallels Desktop 9, I own 8, which is compatible with Yosemite quite well. I don't see the point upgrading to 9. That's a mini review in there, you could say. It's all good. I was going to make a top 5 OS 10 10.11 video, but I cannot think of anything concrete that I find missing from it, and if I do, then I'll probably tweet it or put it on Google Plus or something like that, but I don't think I'm going to think of anything drastic that is missing from OS 10 as I am currently using it. Obviously, it could be optimized more and all of that, but nothing concrete in terms of actual features that you interact with that are missing. I can't think of anything that drastic. The biggest thing I want is probably better stability in all areas of the operating system, and even faster performance where possible. And I will say, I'm sure I'm like everybody else out there, I was affected by the internet bug in Yosemite, the first public version of Yosemite, but I've heard OS 10.10.1 will fix it, but that hasn't been released at the time of recording. So that's the only real issue I have with it at the moment, excluding the audio issues I'm having in iMovie and that. So when you cut a clip and that's the waveforms and all that to tell you how loud a certain part of the video is with the sound in the video, it always goes away and it takes like a minute to get back and all of that, and it's a real pest when editing this, and I'm probably thinking that when I'm editing this video. But otherwise, it's a perfectly good computer and all that, but we'll leave that up to Cupertino to decide what to add to it. The next thing I want to talk about is the Apple TV. So there's two things they could do. They could have an updated Apple TV box, which would be the 4th generation, or a full-blown Apple TV set. So hopefully both of them will come to fruition at some point. If the Apple TV set does, it might come out later next year and all that. But to talk about the actual Apple TV box itself, because that's the one that's probably more popular at the moment, because it's a little add-on to the display that you currently own at home, expected to output at Ultra HD resolutions, which is 4 times the number of pixels of full 1080p HD resolution, integrated with Apple Watch as a remote control, 802.11ac Wi-Fi support, a dedicated app store that works with iOS devices, more built-in storage, so up from the 8GB, which is really designed for storing the operating system and buffering videos when you do live streams and all that. Maybe bump it up to like 32GB, so you've got enough space then to store all your apps from the App Store and all that, and not need to have multiple storage configurations. Just have a 32GB one and just leave it at that. Also, Freeview Plus integration from Australia and all that, so ability to play back previous catalogue videos from the past week and all that through an electronic TV guide and all that. That's slowly rolling out in Australia, but if you are from Australia and you want to know more about that, it might not hurt to do a quick Google search, and the same price as it currently is at the moment. Now for the Apple TV set, I'm expecting the TV set to have a display of nothing short of the Ultra HD resolution, and probably start at around 50 inches with an incredibly high frame rate, maybe 120 Hz, something like that. An entirely new user interface that would just work well on a TV, as Steve Jobs has said in his autobiography written by Walter Isaacson, that he finally cracked it, what the TV is, but that's as much as we know. So hopefully that will be a key component in terms of what will be in the TV itself, or it may be a content deal, something like that. Come with an updated Apple TV remote with built-in offline Siri functionality. So the Amazon Fire Box HD, I can't quite remember what the name of it is, but that's basically got a similar function in that. They basically need to steal that idea, even though they came up with the whole Siri feed and all that beforehand. Have a great integration with the Apple Watch as a remote and content finder. Dedicated app store that has apps that are compatible with the Apple TV 4th generation. Ability to send content from the TV to an iPad or even an iPhone 6 Plus, because that could be another big differentiator to get the Plus model of the iPhone instead of the regular sized iPhone, and successors obviously, so someone can watch a different channel within close proximity and all that. So if you're watching Top Gear or something on your phone and all that, then your parents and all that can watch the news or the Great British Bake Off or another reality TV show or something like that. So they're all examples of what they should be able to do to get people out of their bedrooms and other rooms and all that, and get people back into the TV room and actually watching TV and engaging with it and all that. Also have the ability to show 2 TV channels at the same time, with the ability to toggle between which channel provides the sound and all that. So if you're watching 2 feeds at the same time and you don't really need to listen to one or the other, you can choose which one you want to listen to at once. It was just a thought off the top of my head when I made this video. And have an insanely great deal with content providers, and I can't stress this enough, to provide content on a subscription service of per channel or per series. Could possibly tie in with an Apple on-demand streaming service where you optionally pay for music, movies and TV shows. It wouldn't really work with apps and all that, because you can't really stream applications, and that's going to be too hard to handle with developers and all that stuff. But if you paid like $5 per month to get your music, and then you pay another $5 to get unlimited streaming of movies, and another $5 to get unlimited streaming of TV shows, I'm sure everybody will adopt it quickly. Even if they make it exclusive for an Apple TV set, it could really start the whole transition from people having like Foxtel and all that to go into something that they would rather spend that will probably be more affordable, because that will hopefully reduce internet piracy and all that, because that's a massive issue in Australia as I'm currently speaking. The Apple Watch, I believe, had a solid launch in terms of when they initially announced the product in September 2014. They were obviously not going to announce everything then, because if they announced everything at the same time, there would be nothing to look forward to for the next numerous months or whatever it is until they release it. I'm not expecting an Apple Watch 2 to be announced until at least 2016, and I'm expecting the launch to be sort of mild, probably similar to what the iPad had in terms of demand and all that, but it will slow down in sales more rapidly than the iPad did. We still do not know the full specs of the Apple Watch 1st generation, so I'm expecting a Retina display like Johnny Ive said in the introduction video during the keynote, and at least 8GB of storage for music, basic apps, and the operating system itself. If the sales really struggle as bad as, say, the iPod lineup is at the moment, or as bad as the 1st generation iPhone when that was announced, I'm hoping they will introduce a price drop, possibly before Christmas 2015, so that might increase more sales there. In planning stages at the moment for making an Apple Watch 2 predictions video in terms of what I'm wanting to see for that, and yes, it's before the first one has even come out and before I've used it and anything like that, but I really have a lot of strong opinions as to how they could significantly improve the Apple Watch based off what they've shown us so far. Keeping in mind they've only shown us in the September 2014 keynote as of the time of recording this video. But I've got a lot of strong thoughts and all that as to how they could significantly improve it and increase their sales, because that's all that companies are for, is make good products, put a price on it, make a lot of profit. That's the idea of business. So if you want to see that video, let me know by leaving a comment in the section below, or I'll eventually release that video. So before I round up, I just want to go over some other minor details. I'm expecting the 4 following keynotes to happen throughout 2015, so I'm expecting one around February, March 2015, with updates on everything in the business and all that, and all of the remaining details for the Apple Watch and all that. Probably won't be a full 2-hour keynote or anything, but that's what I'm hoping to see in terms of finishing off what they announced in September 2014 for the Apple Watch at that keynote, with all the pricing configurations and release dates and all that. WWDC 2015, they will announce the next version of OS X, iOS, and then a third major announcement, which could be one of the following, I reckon, which would be another huge release for developers of APIs, so introducing the Apple TV App Store and how it all works and all that stuff. The iMac with Ultra HD Retina display, because they've actually announced Mac hardware at that event before, like the Mac Pro, and even the MacBook Pro Retina, the very first generation of that. The MacBook Air Retina with an ARM architecture so developers can learn how to program for it, along with other Mac App Store applications running on Intel processors. So that could be a very big developer focus at that event. Also in September 2015, I'm expected to announce at least the iPhone 6s and iPhone 6s Plus, and possibly an Apple TV 4th generation box. October 2015, I'm expecting all of the iPads to basically be updated, and you'll notice there's products throughout this list like the Apple TV set and other products like that in terms of updates have not been listed in this list because I honestly don't know when they're going to come, but I could almost guarantee this is when each of the following major announcements are going to happen, because it's mainly just going to be a continuation of the previous years. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you like this new style video and all that. And if you do, please give it a like and all that. The question for you, the audience, is which announcement are you most looking forward to from Apple in 2015? For me, it would have to be iOS 9, as it will make the new iPhones with the larger screens better and all that. At least I'm hoping that will. And if it really does deliver in iOS 9, it doesn't matter so much what the specs are in the next iPhone, but if iOS 9 really does deliver in terms of making a larger screen device a lot better, then I'll be more inclined to upgrade my phone and sign a new contract and all that. But otherwise, I'm probably just as happy with my iPhone 5s at the moment, to be honest. But what are you expecting from Apple in 2015? Let me know by leaving a comment below. And if you enjoy this, please give it a like. And if you choose to subscribe to my channel, follow me on Twitter at TechGuy1212 and on Google Plus at TechGuy1212. Both of those channels have been changed from TechBoy to TechGuy as this whole new transition. Until next time, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you later.